Have you ever had one of those moments where you're lying back, staring at the sky, and suddenly a thought hits you that feels way too big for your brain? Like, what is all this? Why is it so huge? And where exactly do we fit into it? Now imagine that moment happening at noon, when the sun is blazing overhead, and instead of just feeling its heat, you ask a strange but powerful question. How many Earths could fit inside that thing? Not around it, not next to it, inside it. It sounds like a simple science question, but once you really think about it, it starts to feel personal, almost emotional, because the answer quietly changes how you see your place in the universe. Let's begin with what feels familiar. Earth, home, the only place you've ever lived. It feels enormous when you're stuck in traffic for hours. It feels endless when you look out over the ocean. It feels unstoppable when storms roll in or earthquakes shake the ground. Every city, every country, every memory you've ever made exists on this one planet. To us, Earth doesn't feel small at all. It feels like everything. Now pause for a second and really picture Earth. Not a map, not a photo, but the real thing. A blue sphere floating in darkness. Thin clouds wrapping around it like breath on cold glass. That planet carries every laugh, every argument, every love story, every goodbye. All of human history fits right there. And now, place it next to the sun. This is where things get uncomfortable for our intuition. If Earth were the size of a grape sitting in your hand, the sun would be about the size of a massive beach ball resting next to you. Not something you could casually toss around. Something heavy, dominant, something that immediately steals your attention. Suddenly, Earth doesn't look like a world anymore. It looks fragile, temporary, almost shy. The sun's diameter is about 109 times wider than Earth's. That means you could line up 109 Earths side by side, touching each other, stretching from one edge of the sun to the other. Imagine that line. One Earth, then another, over 100 planets wide. And that's just the surface. But lining things up is easy. Filling space is where the real scale reveals itself. Now imagine something that feels a little wrong to picture. Imagine the sun as hollow. No fire, no blinding light, just a gigantic empty sphere. And now imagine gently lowering Earth inside it. No destruction. No drama, just placing it in. One Earth disappears inside. Then another. Then 10. Then 100. Then 1,000. And here's the strange part. Even after thousands of Earths, the sun still feels mostly empty, like tossing pebbles into a stadium and expecting it to fill up. That's because the sun isn't just big. It's vast beyond instinct. You could fit about 1.3 million Earths inside the sun. Say that slowly. 1.3 million. That number doesn't land emotionally at first. Our brains weren't built for it. So let's slow it down. 1,000,000 seconds is just over 11 days. 1,000,000 minutes is almost 2 years. 1,000,000 hours is more than 100 years. Now imagine 1,000,000 planets like Earth, each with oceans, each with skies, each capable of holding life, stories, and civilizations. The sun could hold all of them. And here's something that makes this even more humbling. The sun isn't special in the universe. It's average. It's the kind of star astronomers barely get excited about. Not small enough to be interesting, not big enough to be impressive, just steady, reliable, the cosmic equivalent of someone who shows up every day, does their job, and never asks for attention. There are stars out there so massive that if you replaced our sun with one of them, Earth wouldn't orbit it anymore. Earth would be inside it, gone. Not destroyed in a dramatic explosion, just quietly absorbed into something far larger than itself. Compared to those giants, our sun looks almost modest. And yet, even being average, it can hold over 1,000,000 Earths. Now let's add another layer that most people don't expect. Despite its size, the sun is actually less dense than Earth. If you could place the sun in a giant ocean, it would float. Earth would sink. That's because Earth is made of heavy stuff: rock, metal, iron. The sun is mostly light gases, packed together by gravity. Huge but soft in a cosmic way. Still, the sun holds almost all the mass in our solar system, about 99.8% of it. Everything else, every planet, every moon, every asteroid is basically leftover crumbs. The sun is the anchor, the reason Earth stays where it is, the reason your seasons exist, the reason life had a chance to grow slowly instead of freezing or burning away. And this is where the question changes. How many Earths can fit inside the sun? Stops being just a fun fact. It becomes a reminder of how small home really is, and how incredibly protected it has been. Because Earth sits at just the right distance. A little closer and oceans would boil. A little farther and everything would freeze. Against impossible odds, this tiny planet found itself in the perfect spot around an average star, in a quiet corner of a massive galaxy. And here you are, thinking about it. That alone is kind of incredible. When you sit with this idea long enough, something interesting happens. The numbers stop being just numbers, and they start pressing gently on your emotions. 1 million Earths. Not cities, not countries, whole planets. And all of them could vanish inside the sun without it even noticing. That realization can feel heavy at first, like the universe is quietly reminding you how small you are. But stay with that feeling for a moment. Don't rush past it. Because small doesn't mean unimportant. In fact, sometimes it means the opposite. Think about how carefully everything had to line up for Earth to exist the way it does. The sun formed billions of years ago from a cloud of gas and dust. Gravity pulled it together slowly, patiently, until it ignited. Around it, leftover material clumped into planets. Most of them became hostile worlds. Too hot, too cold, too violent. But one of them landed in the sweet spot. Not by design, not by intention, just by chance. That planet was Earth. And despite being small compared to the sun, Earth became something rare. A place where matter learned how to think. A place where atoms arranged themselves into life, then into awareness, then into questions like the one you're thinking about right now. Now let's stretch our perspective even further, because the sun, as huge as it feels now, is still just one star among hundreds of billions in our galaxy alone. The Milky Way is so vast that light takes over 100,000 years just to cross it. And our sun sits in one quiet spiral arm, far from the dramatic center. It's not in a crowded, dangerous region. It's in a calm suburb of the galaxy. And maybe that's why we're here. If the sun were much bigger, it would burn through its fuel faster. Life wouldn't have had time to develop. If it were much smaller, it might not have provided enough energy to keep Earth warm and stable. This average star turned out to be exactly what life needed. Not impressive, not dramatic, just dependable. There's something deeply human about that. Now let's talk about stars that are not average. Somewhere out there is a star we'll call Star B. If you replace the sun with Star B, its surface would stretch past where Mars orbits today. Earth wouldn't be circling it peacefully. It would be deep inside its outer layers, surrounded by fire, crushed by gravity, erased from existence. And Star B isn't even the largest. There are stars so large that if you place them where our sun is, their edges would reach beyond Saturn. At that scale, asking how many Earths could fit inside them becomes almost meaningless. You're not counting anymore. You're surrendering to scale. Yet even those massive stars don't last long. They burn bright and fast. They live dramatic, violent lives and then explode or collapse. Our sun, by contrast, burns slowly, carefully, like it's in no hurry, and that slowness gave life time. Time is the real miracle here. Life doesn't happen quickly. It needs stability. It needs patience. It needs billions of years without everything falling apart. And that's exactly what this average-sized star provided. Not excitement, not spectacle, just consistency. Now think about your own life for a second. The days that shape you the most are rarely the dramatic ones. They're the quiet ones, the routines, the steady moments that slowly build into something meaningful. In a strange way, the sun reflects that same truth on a cosmic scale. Even though it can hold 1.3 million Earths, it doesn't show off. It doesn't flare dramatically most of the time. It just rises, shines, and sets, over and over again. There's another detail that makes this even more surreal. Despite its size, you could fit all the planets between Earth and the Moon side by side with room to spare. Space is mostly emptiness. The sun feels huge only because everything else is so far away. The universe is not crowded. It's vast and quiet. That emptiness makes Earth feel even more special. Out of all that nothingness, this tiny planet developed oceans, forests, music, language, laughter. It developed people who look up at the sun and wonder how many worlds could fit inside it. The universe didn't need to do that, but it did. And here's where perspective really shifts. Knowing how small Earth is compared to the sun doesn't have to make your life feel meaningless. It can do the opposite. It can free you from thinking everything has to be perfect, that every mistake is catastrophic. In a universe where stars can swallow 1 million planets, maybe you're allowed to be human, to fail, to try again. The universe isn't fragile, but life is, and that makes it valuable. The sun will continue burning for about 5 billion more years, long after current nations fade, long after today's technology becomes history, long after our names are forgotten. And that's okay, because meaning was never about lasting forever. It was about existing at all. Right now, Earth is in the sun's safe zone, warm, stable, alive, a tiny dot in a massive system that just happens to work. And for this brief moment in cosmic time, we get to be part of it. So when you ask how many Earths can fit inside the sun, you're really asking something deeper. You're asking how something so small can matter in something so big. And the answer is simple. It matters because it's here. By now, the question has stopped feeling like a simple science fact. It's become something quieter, heavier, almost personal. Because once you truly accept how small Earth is compared to the sun, and how small the sun is compared to the rest of the universe, it forces you to face a strange contradiction. If we're so tiny, why do our lives feel so big? Every joy, every fear, every regret, they feel enormous when you're inside them. A bad day can feel like the end of the world. A single loss can change the shape of your life forever. And yet, from the perspective of the sun, something that could hold over 1 million Earths, none of it even registers. And somehow that doesn't make it meaningless. It makes it honest. Let's take the comparison even further. Beyond giant stars, there are things in the universe that completely break our sense of scale. Black holes, objects so dense that space itself collapses inward. Places where distance and time stop behaving the way we expect. Compared to them, even the sun feels gentle. A black hole the size of a city could outweigh the sun. A black hole larger than our solar system could exist without making a sound. No light, no warning, just gravity doing what gravity does. And yet, black holes don't create life. They don't warm planets. They don't offer stability. They don't give anything a chance to grow. The sun, despite being smaller, does all of that. Size alone isn't power. Influence is. That's another uncomfortable truth. The sun doesn't dominate our lives because it's the biggest thing around. It dominates because it's close, because it's constant, because it shows up every day. And in a strange way, that mirrors human relationships too. The things that shape us most aren't always the biggest or loudest. They're the ones that stay. Think about how effortlessly the sun holds Earth in place. Not with force you can feel, not with noise or movement. Just gravity, quiet, invisible, reliable. Earth doesn't have to fight to stay in orbit. It simply belongs there. For billions of years, that balance hasn't broken. That kind of stability is rare in the universe. Most places are violent, chaotic, full of collisions and extremes. But our corner is calm. Not because the universe is kind, but because conditions happen to line up. And in that calm, life found a way. When scientists talk about how many Earths can fit inside the sun, they're measuring volume, space, geometry, but what they're really measuring is contrast. The contrast between scale and meaning, between size and significance. Because Earth may be tiny, but it's dense with experience, with emotion, with stories. The sun could hold 1.3 million Earths, but it can't hold a single memory. Can't feel warmth from its own light. Can't wonder what exists beyond itself. We can. That's the quiet miracle. We are small enough to be held by gravity, but complex enough to question it. We are fragile enough to disappear, but aware enough to care. And that awareness changes everything. Now imagine zooming out even more. Past the sun, past the solar system, past the Milky Way, out into the observable universe. Billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars. Each star potentially holding millions of Earth's worth of space. The universe is so large that even saying infinite doesn't feel accurate. It's just unknowable. And somewhere inside that immensity, there's this tiny planet where life learned how to look up and ask, how big is the sun? That question didn't need to be asked, but it was. And that tells you something important about us. We're not here just to survive. We're here to understand. When you realize how many Earths can fit inside the sun, you might feel humbled, maybe even overwhelmed. But humility isn't the same as insignificance. Humility just means you see yourself clearly, not as the center of everything, but as a meaningful part of something much larger. And that perspective can change how you live, can make you a little kinder, a little more patient. It can remind you that most conflicts are small in the grand scheme of things, but moments of connection are rare and valuable. In a universe this vast, being able to care at all is remarkable. The sun doesn't know it holds a million Earths worth of space. It doesn't know it supports life. It just exists. We, on the other hand, get to exist and understand that we exist. That difference is everything. One day, far in the future, the sun will change. It will grow. It will shed its outer layers. Earth may not survive that transformation, but life ending doesn't erase life having happened. Nothing can take away the fact that for billions of years, this small planet mattered. And right now, in this moment, it still does. So when you hear the number 1.3 million Earths, don't just hear a statistic. Hear the story behind it. A story about scale, about balance, about how something average can be extraordinary simply by being in the right place. And maybe, in a quiet way, it's also a story about you. At some point, every big question circles back to something small, personal, quiet. And this one is no different. After all the numbers, all the comparisons, all the unimaginable scale, we're left with a simple image. A small blue planet, a warm yellow star, and a fragile balance between the two that has somehow lasted long enough for you to be here, listening to this, thinking about it. The sun doesn't feel like a monster in the sky anymore. It feels like a guardian, not because it chose to be, but because its existence makes everything else possible. It holds over a million Earths worth of space inside it, yet it gives just enough of itself to keep this one planet alive. Not too much, not too little, just enough. And that balance is everything. We often think power comes from being the biggest thing in the room, the loudest, the most dominant. But the sun teaches a different lesson. This power comes from consistency, from showing up every day, from staying stable while everything else changes, from burning slowly instead of burning out. There's something deeply comforting about that. Because if the universe itself runs on balance rather than extremes, maybe we don't have to live at extremes either. Maybe it's okay to be average, to be steady, to be quietly meaningful instead of endlessly impressive. Think about how strange it is that we even get to ask this question. How many Earths can fit inside the sun? The universe doesn't owe us answers. It doesn't owe us understanding. And yet, here we are, with minds capable of stretching beyond survival, beyond instinct, beyond the present moment. We can imagine things we will never touch, measure things we will never reach, feel awe for things that don't even know we exist. That's not nothing. When you step outside on a bright day and feel the sun on your skin, you're feeling energy that began deep inside its core. Energy created by atoms merging together, releasing light that traveled through space for 8 minutes just to reach you. 8 minutes doesn't sound like much until you realize that's how far away the sun is. And even from that distance, it shapes your entire world. Seasons, weather, food, life itself. And yet, in the cosmic sense, that distance is nothing. Just a tiny gap in a massive emptiness. The sun could hold 1.3 million Earths inside it. But it holds something else too. It holds time. Billions of years of slow, steady burning. Enough time for life to begin, stumble, evolve, and become aware of itself. Enough time for civilizations to rise and fall. Enough time for you to exist for a brief, beautiful moment. And that moment matters. Not because it lasts forever, but because it happens at all. Sometimes people worry that learning how small we are will make life feel pointless. But the opposite is true. In a universe this large, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is promised. That makes every experience sharper. Every connection more meaningful. Every question more valuable. The sun doesn't care how many Earths can fit inside it. The universe doesn't care that we figured it out. But we care. And that's the difference. We are not important because we are big. We are important because we are aware. So the next time you hear that number, 1.3 million, don't just think of it as a fact to memorize. Think of it as a reminder. A reminder that home is small, but not insignificant. That you are tiny, but not meaningless. That existing in a universe this vast is not a reason to feel lost. It's a reason to feel amazed. Because out of all the space where nothing is alive, you are alive. Out of all the stars that could have formed, this one formed in just the right way. Out of all the planets that could have existed, this one became home. So yes, the sun could hold over 1 million Earths inside it. But this one Earth, the one you're on right now, is enough. If this journey made you pause, even briefly, take that pause with you. Share this story with someone who likes to think beyond the everyday. Like the video, stay curious. And remember, in a universe built on unimaginable scale, your ability to wonder might be the most powerful thing of all.